infinite complacence, people went to and fro of the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
So on this edition of Into the Fray, I welcome Leo on with me. And Leo, you're going to be sharing some very strange events that took place in Pennsylvania back in November of 2011. And if you're okay with it, Leo, why don't you share maybe where just the county is? Because we're not going to get any more specific than that because it is private property.
It happened in Venango County, Pennsylvania, about an hour north of Pittsburgh, an hour south of Erie.
Of course, welcome on the show, Leo. Thank you so much for getting in touch. But how rural is it then, an hour north of a major metropolitan area? What kind of a topography are we looking at, and how many neighbors, all of that kind of information? And this was your wife's grandfather's property.
The area is heavily wooded. I say you're in the mountains, but driving in, you don't notice that you're in the mountains. The actual location, it was an old town back in, I believe, the 1800s. It's on top of a hill. You wouldn't know it's there now. If you go rummaging around, you go down to the river, and you would see that it's heavily wooded and mountainous terrain-ish. It's like it's not really big mountains, but it's decent. The neighbors are pretty far in between. It's country, backwoods, farms.
And you mentioned in your email that this actually used to be a thriving mining town.
Oil town, yeah.
All right, so wife's grandfather's property. We're not going to get too much more specific than that, right? But back in 2011, you guys did end up going out there for deer season, right?
Yes, it was for the opening day for rifle deer season. Usually there's the season archery, then you got the buck the week before, but this entailed buck and doe. So the whole family gets involved. So we were there for that.
And you had been out here before all of these events, right?
Yes, yeah, we go all the time to visit family. I rummage around the woods whenever I can. I like to take photos of mushrooms, so I'm really big into mushrooms. So whenever I get a chance to go into the woods just to look for mushrooms, I go rummaging around.
You know, Leo, to me, that makes what we're about to talk about, these events, even more fantastic and interesting. The fact that you had been out here so many times, you just admitted, I traipse around the woods all the time, love to do it. Nothing ever happened that was odd to you. And then the property just did a mic drop and just showed you all of its weirdness in one fell swoop.
Yeah, I like to say ahead of time, I'm a skeptic. However, as a kid, I grew up heavily in sci-fi movies and horror movies. That's why when I tell you what I saw, I would compare it to 80s horror because that's the only thing I can compare it to. But at the same time, I'm a skeptic, so it's kind of hard to believe.
Yeah, so let's go. And this is right on opening day, you say, of deer season. And this is before dawn. That's all I'm going to say. I'm going to let you take it away from here.
So had it was myself, my wife, and a couple friends, good friends of mine. We planned the hunt in the property, I guess, the night before. Usually the first 2 days when everybody's amped up to go hunt for deer, we all like to wake up early and put ourselves in tree stands or whatever we're at in the property. So we would wake up half an hour to 40 minutes ahead of time, just so we can walk in into the woods and just sit and let everything settle down. I told my buddies that, hey, you go here, you go there, and I'm just gonna sit sort of in between everybody in the back of the line on the tree stand that I had. So the tree stand was on top of a hill overlooking a little valley on top of the mountain. That makes any sense. So like the way the creek went, it cuts across the property, and on either side it just creates like a little bowl. So I was there sitting 20 minutes, half an hour before sunlight or sunrise, and everybody should have been in their place already ahead of time, just waiting just for something to come up. I see a red light just in the trees, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, who the hell is walking around? Like, there's everybody should be just sitting on the stands. Like, nobody should be walking around. Like, I don't couldn't tell you exactly how long it was for sunrise at that moment, but there should have been nobody walking around. And like everybody has like on the headlamps that has a feature where you had the red light on it. So sometimes some of us will use the red light to walk around at night. But like I said, nobody should have been walking around. So I'm texting and I'm on the radio, whispering, "Hey, who's walking around?" It's like everybody's coming back to me like, "Nope, we're all sitting." So I had my wife call to her grandfather to see if anybody else from the family was walking in, and they didn't tell us ahead of time, because that's a major safety thing that we don't want nobody to get shot or get shot from them, because we don't know where they were. So everybody came back all clear. Nobody should have been around except us. And I keep looking at this light. This light is just at that moment I realized it wasn't a flashlight, because when somebody walks and there's a wobble, or if there was a flashlight, you're swinging around looking. This light was constant, and it's just floating in between the trees. And like I said, I was on top of a hill on the bowl. So the other side, where anybody should have been, was about 150 yards ish away. And visibly, we couldn't see each other, even if we had a light on. It was just not possible, even at the time of year where there was leaves around, but not enough. The leaves were down, but there was still enough coverage for because of the pine trees. You can't see through the woods, and that light just floated through the trees, and until I just couldn't see it anymore. And I'm like, man, it's like, what in the world was that? I just couldn't figure out. Later on the day, when nobody shot that time, it was even the opening day, nothing was moving around. We all just, hey, let's go in for breakfast. I walked down to into the bowl area and over to see where the highest part would have been for somebody to be walking around, and there was no chance that I could have seen myself on the tree stand or anything. It was just too far away. That light was literally on the tree, on top of the tree line, and just floating through. Yeah, and it was a red light. I can't say if it was an orb. I just not enough detail to see it was an orb. It was just a red light. Yeah, that's the story. The red light.
How long do you think you watched it for?
I was a good 3 4 minutes. It was steady and slow.
And then it just kind of, did you see it actually essentially poof disappear, or did it go behind a tree and then you just lost sight of it?
Just lost sight of it and
Yeah.
just kept going.
Did you feel anything about it when you were looking at it? Did it frighten you at all, or was it just like, what in the world was that?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, what was that? It's like, again, I was a little bit upset because I kept thinking, like, who is walking around? It's like this, like nobody should be walking around. It wasn't until later when I was trying to determine where, that's I don't know what that was.
And how much before dawn was it at this point when the light actually showed up?
uh, 15, 20 minutes, give or take. It was just enough where you can see, the little pop of orange starting to come up in the sunrise, but not enough to be light.
At that point, Especially the next day when you actually went to investigate. Had you heard at that point about things like lights in the woods or orbs in the woods before?
So no, at this point in my life, like I said, I've been big into this kind of stuff, but I've never actually heard about lights in the woods until after when I started researching. What was it?
All right. So the next event is, and as you say, this happened a long time ago. I get it. Timelines get kind of skewed. This was a day or two at the max later, but you're not exactly positive, right?
I know it was mid hunting week. At this point, we all got tired of waking up early, so everybody just did whatever. It was like, hey, I'm just gonna be here. You're gonna be there. Everybody told everybody's location where we're going to be at in the property. So I just went down to an adjacent property which we had permission to hunt in, but all my buddies they didn't want to do that side of the hill, so I just went by myself. And this is where the actual houses were from the old town. So there's only about three to four ish foundations left from the old houses. So I sat in one of them. So it's just a stone foundation that's left from the old house, and maybe a couple of three or four big boulders next to it. So I sat in one of the big boulders, and there's a tree that was like leaning right onto it. So I just sat my butt there and just leaned my back on the tree. And I was there maybe, I don't know, an hour, give or take. I smelled smoke, not burning smoke from a fire or whatever, but like a cigarette smoke or cigar smoke. And I'm like, man, there's nobody here. Like, who's smoking? At the same time, I heard like whispers and a whistle. And I was like, who the hell's calling whistling at me? So I look over, and this all happened within a blink. I look over, and all I see is the head and shoulders of what I can say was an older Amish person with a hat. And as soon as I saw it, I blinked, and it wasn't there anymore. I didn't smell anything afterwards either. That's as quick as I saw it. That's as quick as it went away. Yeah, and that was that part.
How far away were you from him?
Maybe 20 feet, pretty close. It was still within the foundation part.
That was really close. Yeah, that sounds like a
Yeah,
really cool residual type of a visual that you had.
yeah. And till this day, every time I go up there, I'll tell my wife's grandpa, I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go over by foundation. I'm gonna go look for mushrooms. And he's like, oh, you're gonna see the Dutchman again. Like, yeah, he won't drop it.
But he wasn't, I mean, it's not like he's seen that. It's not like that's a local legend and the quote unquote the Dutchman. It was because you shared the story that now he's kind of poking fun about it, right?
A little bit of both. Like the entire, well, not the entire area. Half the area is Amish. There's Amish around. So that part of the property at that point was owned by Amish and their family. It wasn't until recently that they had sold it. So he had known, he had prior knowledge of, like like I said in my email, like they always mention the woods as in those woods. Oh, you're gonna go into those woods. It's like whatever those woods means. So they're my wife's family, they're very I wouldn't say religious, but they're very God fearing people. So they don't necessarily believe in the paranormal. Whenever paranormal stuff comes up, I would say the demonic. They don't believe in that stuff, so I just make fun of them for it, and in return, they make fun of me for it. So
Right.
yeah,
Gotcha. So that's especially in that case because it was so quick. I mean, besides the fact that the lower half of him was not visible, right? It was only the top half, so obviously not a living person, which could have been a little frightening if it had been a longer visual or if he had interacted with you in some way, because that was very close. 20 feet is extremely close. You probably didn't have time to really feel fright for that one. Did you stay in the area right after that and just hang out because that's
yeah,
was your spot? Okay.
yeah. No, I don't know if we're chance to talk about it later on or not, but I've had little, I have some. ghostly paranormal experiences, I guess, throughout my life. So it didn't faze me.
Next up, we've kind of got the coup de grace here, right? Which is essentially, I would assume, probably why you really reached out, because you said you saw the Dogman doc that I did with STM and Aaron. And now we're going to go there. We are going to talk about something else that you saw during that week. And this took a hard left turn from the other two things that we just talked about.
So this happened the very last day. I left my hunting spot about an hour, maybe an hour and a half before sundown, so I can go get a shower and get ready for the night, for the evening. We had family dinner that night on my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law had been cooking all day. My wife had stopped hunting, I believe, during midday, so she can go help out with the dinner. My mother-in-law likes to throw big dinners and big parties for that time of year. Believe my friends already had left because they already got their deer. So it was just me, the last man standing for the hunt. That I didn't get anything that year, so I was just there. Oh, let me just squeeze in the last few minutes that I can, or the last few hours that I can. Time came, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go ahead and get ready for the night. So I go get a shower. I went to my wife's grandfather's property, and from his house to his daughter's house, I want to say it's about a quarter of a mile, give or take, like I say, as the crow flies. So they're sort of a main road. And my mother-in-law's house lives a little bit in the woods off the main road on a dirt path. It's not that big of a deal for a walk. We all like to walk that, every time we were there. We'll go walk over to grandma's house or whatever. We enjoy that little walk. So I get my shower. I'm walking in. So I'm in the dirt path into my mother-in-law's house, and this is next to where my hunting stand was in the beginning of the week. Like I said, it was on top of the hill overlooking this bowl. So her house is just, if you follow the trail, it's just going down the trail, and you would see it. They were there, the house. I mean, so I'm walking the trail. I'm maybe 100 feet away from the house when I had this feeling, that feeling you get when somebody's watching you. I was like, okay, like I know the family's inside the house. They can see me, but they wouldn't care that I'm coming in. It's just a weird feeling. I was like, oh my God, something's just looking at me. So I'm still walking. I look over towards the house, and right towards the left of the house, on my left side, there is a bush line and a tree line, and I see this black thing there, and I just stop and I look at it. Oh, I'm like, what is that? And then when I realize, oh, it's a bear, and that's when I stopped. I'm like, it's a bear, and I'm like, let me just stop and look at it. And I realized it was not a bear. The After the black thing that I saw, all you can see was the bright yellow eyes. I'm like, that's the moment I said, okay, there's something else going on. This is not a bear. What is this? Weird. I'm staring at this thing. It had, as best I can say, the face of a coyote. It was jet black, the head shape of a coyote, the back. If you can imagine a big, large black bear with, I'm not going to say human, but a human-ish broad shoulders. When you see a dog, it gets like upset of another dog, and the hairs on the back just kind of like curl up. So that's all I saw. It was literally a stare down. I stood my ground. I'm like, I don't know what this is. I've never seen anything like this before. I'm not gonna freak out. I'm not gonna show fear because I don't know if it's gonna attack me or not. So I just stood my ground and just like literally stare at it. We stare at each other for a good 30 seconds to a minute, and just it I want to say kind of like slithered or back into the shrubs, into the trees, and that was it. It was at the moment when it slid back into the trees. I was like, oh my God! It's like I'm gonna get attacked. But like I said, I don't know, visually I was showing fear, but internally I was like, okay, I gotta stand my ground. I can't let predator or whatever it is know that I'm afraid of it, because I don't want to get attacked by it. So as soon as it went to the woods, I'm like, I didn't run away, but I kind of like high stepped it back into the house. I go in, and the first thing I talk to my wife, I'm like, hey, I just saw what I think was a very large black dog that I've never seen before in the woods. It's like, I know it wasn't coyote, like, because her dad has like a coyote, literally a black coyote mounted in his house, but it was just the size of a regular dog. I won't say no bigger than a large size beagle. This was huge. It was, like I said, maybe like the size of a large black bear, if not bigger. So I'm telling everybody in the house, I'm like, hey, you guys seen this before? Like, no, no, oh. And then my mother-in-law said, oh, it's just it's those woods, those woods. And everybody kind of like shrugged me off. And then comes my brother-in-law. Well, maybe like 2 or 3 hours later in the night, he's ready to leave. He's saying his goodbyes, and he walks out. Not 2 or 3 minutes later, he comes back into the house. Like, I gotta say this, 'cause, like, I'm Puerto Rican, I'm dark skinned, but my wife, she's a Pennsylvania white. So her brother is white. But when he came back in, he was pale and he was visibly scared. He stops and talks to his mom like, "Hey, does anybody around here have a large black dog?" And I heard that. I got up from where I was sitting and I said, "I told you." Like, you all think I'm crazy, but I told you. And I started going off and started yelling about it. And he's like, "Yeah, this what it looks like is a big black dog on top of the hill." I'm like, and that's all he said. I was trying to get more information on it. Did it look like this? And it looked like that. And I was like, no, no, I just never seen anything like this before. And then he brought in the fact of the eyes, and like, it had yellow eyes and was just looking at me. It was on top of the hill. I didn't know what to do, so I came back in. So that was that. Fast forward a few years later, I want to say about 2 years ago, I talked to him again about it, and he refuses to acknowledge that the conversation happened or the incident happened. But I have witnesses that they were there that heard me, heard him, and heard the whole commotion. Yeah, that's about it in the story. So a little side note: my mother-in-law has a chicken coop on top of the hill, and she's always had chickens and small farm animals, and there's always incidents where she's missing chickens or some kind of rodent or raccoon, as she says, attacked the chickens and leaves the trail of body parts behind it. Whenever I bring it up, like, hey, could it be anything else aside chicken? I mean, aside raccoon? It's like, no, no, it's just a raccoon. They don't acknowledge anything else aside a raccoon. So yeah, that's it. That's my story about the possible dog man. Have trying to go back and revisit everything. At the moment, I feared that I would probably get attacked by it, but I would go back and I would, if I had the incident again, I would love to see it again. To me, I think if I was visibly afraid, I think I would have gotten attacked by the animal, whatever it was. But because I think I stood my ground and just stared back at it, and it just kind of went away. I was like, I think I don't know if this is coming through or not, but I'm just saying that feeling is like, I'm not afraid of it. I guess what I'm trying to say, like, I would love to have the same things happen, if
Yeah.
not more.
So where your brother-in-law saw it on the hill is essentially where you had just come from, correct?
When I was coming down, I looked at when I saw it is where he saw it, so we kind of changed some, positions, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, so because your thought was that it was heading right for the old chicken coop.
yeah, that's my thinking. That's just my opinion, my thought process.
But that was of note enough to the grandmother that, hey, yeah, things did get killed, and she would find bits and pieces of these animals that she was trying to raise around over the years.
Right. So here's another detail too about because I've one of my best friends, he's asked me about it before. So my mother-in-law's house, she has a big glass window that overlooks the trail part of the property, and you can see clearly. And, when you're coming in, you can see clearly into inside the house. But when you're inside the house, you cannot see outside the house at all. At night, it is pitch black, and when you got the lights inside the house, you cannot see towards outside. So if anything were to have happened, nobody would have been able to see it.
Well, yeah, and when you're the only home in the middle of a property like that, there's no reason to have blinds or curtains, or if you do, you don't probably shut them. That is super creepy. I've always loved that, though, about houses like that in the middle of nowhere, because you've got the lights on inside. You can't see a damn thing outdoors. Something could just be right on the other side of the glass, just watching the fish swim around the bowl, and you would have no idea. All right, so a couple of questions here. So there was no sound associated with your sighting of what we're assuming is a Dogman type creature.
No, and it didn't surprise me either. That fact of the story, like I said, it didn't surprise me. When any time that we've hunted, even the deer depends is about 150 pounds to 200 pounds, give or take on the size. So most of the time, I've never heard it until it was literally right next to me. I've had deer run, on a full sprint, and I only heard it when it was 20, 50 feet away from me. I did not hear it before. So even when we walk around the woods, it's like we hear ourselves, like, big heavy steps. But these large animals, I'm, like I said, I'm out in the woods. I take photos of mushrooms. I've seen animals out all the time. I've never I've never listened to anything. The sound effects of the woods. I only hear the trees and the leaves falling. So that part didn't surprise me.
Did it ever bare its teeth at all at you?
No, no. It was a full stare. A staring competition we had for 30 seconds or a little bit more.
That's a long time. I could see where, because you said even before you saw it, and this is something we hear a lot with Dogman, that you had this real primal instinct that something was watching you that wasn't a person. And you described in your email how like the hairs went up on the back of your neck, and you actually started to feel very warm, like your body was kind of going into some kind of overdrive, like something is not right.
Yeah, I forgot to say that. Yeah, it was 100% that feeling. It was cold November night or even sunset, whatever. I just had that feeling, and I was like, oh man, it's like why am I getting so warm? And that's when I saw it, and I just decided to sleep.
I don't know how exactly how old you are, but I imagine we grew up around the same time. It reminds me, I just imagined Atreyu and Mork from Neverending Story, right? The massive black wolf, and he's kind of coming out of the cave, and they've got this little stare down situation, an oh shit moment, essentially. But that's what I imagined when you emailed me, and I'm trying to put myself in that place, and I'm like, well, unless it stood up on two legs at some point, which thankfully it didn't. I think that would have been quite terrifying, to be honest with you. But I don't know. That's where my brain went with the visual.
Funny you say that, because that's when I retold the story to one of my best friends. That's what I said. Like, hey, remember this movie and this part?
Really?
Kind of what it. Yeah.
I think, did he have yellow eyes too? I forget.
I think so.
I forget if he did it or not. Anyway, anybody that hasn't seen that movie, it'll be strange probably to people that haven't seen it, even if you are our age, to go back and watch it now. It might seem a little cheesy, but listen, that movie is wonderful, and everyone should experience the Neverending Story. Just the first one. You don't need to watch any more after that. I think there's a part 2. No need to watch it. Does that family, the wife's grandparents, do they still own that property?
Yeah, he I want to say about 100 acres that he owns there, and like I said, the neighbors have about another 150 that we were allowed to hunt in. It is a very large property.
Over the years, though, did you kind of go down the rabbit hole after having these experiences, and then you get online and lights and ghosts and cryptids? What kind of stuff did you find to compare to your own experiences?
I 100% fell into a rabbit hole after this. Like I mentioned in my email, I'm a media person during my regular work hours, so I wanted to make my own documentary about this, but I'm just not going to have a chance to do it. So when I started researching the history of the area, I could not find anything. It wasn't until a few years ago I found what they call the lichen loop. I don't know if you heard about this, but there's a bunch of sightings that kind of center around State College, and if you put that as a center, it goes out as far. Oh, I forgot the name of that town. Now it's about maybe the closest to my sighting is about 50 miles away. That's the only thing that I found on it so far.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I've talked to.
Lon Strickler came up with that term, I think, right? The lichen loop. Is that from Lon of Phantom
That's it.
and Monsters?
Yes, yes, that's it.
And I'm sorry, you
Yeah.
were about to say something. You talked to who? I'm sorry.
No, I've talked to. I've been to a couple festivals and Bigfoot festivals and such. Just trying to get information from people, but nothing on Dogman in the area aside from that lichen loop.
Is Venango County within Lichen Loop?
I think it's just outside of it.
Yeah, I know Lon's taken quite a number of reports. I mean, you've got, we've done part of the doc out there for UFOs. You got Chestnut Ridge out there. And these are areas that, just like what you just shared, they've got like hat tricks. You know, they've got all kinds of different phenomena in one area going down. And you're kind of like, what is it about this place that it essentially makes it a hotspot?
That's my feelings on it too.
So you have been back out to the property, you said, but have you actually gone out and done the whole go out every day and try to hunt? You're by yourself, and have you done actually gone through those motions again?
I've tried just about everything. Even I think it was last year, the last time we went hunting in the area. I was just telling my son like, hey, if you see anything out of the ordinary, just first thing you know is radio in. I'll run right to it. I go in whenever I can into those woods. I'm not afraid of it. I just think it's cool. It wasn't something that was ever expecting to happen, but I'm kind of glad that it happened. I've always wanted to see a UFO. I've never had the chance to see a UFO, but I've never specifically expected this to see this. Yeah, it was just something. Yeah.
Leo, its physical appearance. I know that you said it was bigger than a wolf. It was the size of a large black bear, which is huge for a dog type of an animal. I guess it's a two-part question. More so, like I know that you saw it essentially straight on, so this might be kind of a difficult question. But in regards to its physical build, and also this might be moot point because you may not have been able to see this again, but some people, when they describe a dogman, they describe it as looking hyena-ish, especially because its back will slope up towards its neck. In regards to those two things, do you have anything to comment about that?
No, like I said, I wish I would have seen more of his body. Yeah, no, that's the only thing I saw was like the face and the head, the shoulder area and the I guess the whole upper back of it, but nothing with the feet or paws, nothing. It was one of those. I wish I would have seen the lower, at least the lower back half of it to see what the shape of it was, and that's why I went the next day to see if I can find the prints, but nothing.
So I mean, I love the fact that you already said yes. I would like to see it again. I don't normally hear that with the Dogman stuff, so that is refreshing to hear. I do like that. You even told your son, "Hey, if you see something weird, just run at it." I mean, with the neighbors and a lot of people, I mean, neighbors don't even talk about normal stuff half the time. We don't all talk to our neighbors, so this is probably again something that doesn't even really need to be asked, but I probably should. Was there ever any whispers when something would come up? Maybe the grandma would say, "Oh, Mr. Brown next door used to say la la la." Yeah, if in regards to something strange, no matter what it was, lights or apparitions or shadows or creatures? Was there any whispers of that amongst neighbors?
They have a neighbor that I think he owns a cabin a few I don't know the distance of it, but it's there in the area. He always visits my wife's grandpa. He lives in Pittsburgh, but like I said, he owns cabin there. So whenever every weekend he'll go up just to stay the weekend. Unfortunately, he's not the most credible person. So whenever he says something, we're like, oh, here we go again. There's another story. So he said he's seen Bigfoot in the area, and apparently there's a lot of Bigfoot throughout the entire wood range part of the county, I guess. Even in the town underneath, they have a carving for Bigfoot. You know, I think they used to have Bigfoot in festival back in the day. But everybody talks about in some way, shape, or form Bigfoot there. But when everybody hears it, it's like, oh, here we go, another one of those stories. So nobody actually takes credibility about it. And those that do, like I said earlier, like they're not really religious, but they're all God fearing. So that shapes into, oh, it's just the demons are walking about. We got to pray about it. We kind of go ping pong back and forth, making jokes to each other.
Here's the clincher, though. The neighbor is actually telling 100% the truth, but everyone just thinks he's wacky because they're all paranormal encrypted stories.
Yep. I would have to agree.
I mean, you never know. He could be a tall tale, the fish was this big kind of a guy that tells those kind of tales. But, I mean, considering what you had happen during that week, maybe he's just trying to share what he's experienced and everyone just calls him old, crazy, whatever his name is, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we gotta talk to that guy. And by the way, in regards to your doc, I mean, I would say just, don't give up 100% on it. You never know what might happen down the line.
For sure. Yeah. You're right.
I mean, especially if you still have access to that property, that'd be pretty cool, because sometimes that can be a huge pain in the, to try to film is just to try to get access and permission. And I mean, heck, if you can go stay out there for a week and you could talk to all kinds of people, you got to find that neighbor. That's for sure.
How's my plan? Yeah. And I've semi talked to them about it. Say, hey, would you be able, or would you like to do this? And everybody's cool. Everybody's cool about it until you ask them, hey, would you want to be on camera?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then the big well, I don't know. I don't know about that. And they
Yeah.
have this, they call it the West Pennsylvania draw. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it adds another layer when you're like, well, would you like to be on film? You're like, no. No, they already call me crazy Mr. Whatever, and now I'm going to be on film. Yeah, but anyway, I just wanted to say that as a caveat there, because you just never know what might happen, and that would be pretty cool if you did a documentary on that. Okay, so I mean, if you were into it and you feel like it, maybe share a couple or a few or however many you'd like to share of your impactful ghostly experiences.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to. I would share two actually. One when my I was a five ish. I can say I'm from Puerto Rico. My mom had me, I guess. She called me her miracle baby. She had a couple miscarriages before she had me. So when she had me, she treated me like her little prince, right? So I was five, and every night she would come towards my bed and just say goodnight, be the living mom, whatnot. So this one night, I thought she was there, and when I look over, my nightlight was turned on, and I just see the shadow of somebody petting me and just rubbing my head, and I felt it. So when I look over to see if it was my mom, obviously I thought it was my mom. But when I look over, to talk to her, there was nobody there. But when I look back at the light, I still see that shadow there, and I'm like, oh, just covered myself up in a blanket, and that was all she wrote. I want to say I don't remember. I was very young, but I had another experience there in my room too, where the bed one night was shaking, and I just couldn't tell what it was, and I just saw like a shadow figure, and that's what I remember about that. But fast forward, my college when I was in college in late '90s, I was in the I went to a Catholic college in Puerto Rico, and we had uh, apartments as dorms. There was all the girls had their own college dorm specifically for them, but for the guys, and they had a dorm built for us. So they gave us apartments adjacent to the school. So all the guys live in these apartments. We had we had a few incidents that evolved throughout. I want to say 3 months. One day, one night, we were woken up. One of my roommates. There was an apartment that had 3 rooms, a dining room, and a kitchen. The My roommates from the middle room. It was a big scuffle. They ran out of the room. It was in the middle of the night where everybody was sleeping. We all got scared, like, "Hey, what the hell's going on?" So we were trying to figure out what's going on, and they were just going at it, just screaming. They, I don't, and it's cussing, everything you can imagine coming out of their mouths, and they just kept pointing at the room, pointing at the room. So we go in the room, and all the stuff from one of one of their tables was just thrown. And I remember the shaving cream was on the wall. It was like that shaving cream just came up and just hit the wall. And we were like, "What? Like, you man, you're crazy." And that's kind of what started it. I'm sorry. There's a lot going on here because one night we were sitting in the living room. We were just waiting for whoever to get out of the shower. We all had took turns to get into the one shower to go in and whatever. So we're waiting, we're talking, we're waiting. So then one of us realized, like, hey, who's in the shower? It's like, we're all here. It's like, why is the shower still going? You know, we guys, we get involved in our conversation, we start joking around and whatnot that we just didn't realize. So we go in, the door was locked. The door to the bathroom was locked from the inside. So we had to open it up. We go in, the shower's running. There's nobody in the bathroom. We're like, what in the world? So we couldn't figure that one out. Same thing. So, I mean, same apartment. Few nights. I don't remember exactly when all this happened. We would wake up in the middle of the night. The stove would be on. Somebody will wake up because we would smell that something was burning in the kitchen. Thank God, nothing ever happened out of this. But the stove would be on, or the oven would be on in the middle of the night. The one time I saw a shadow figure in the corner. I I believe I had the sleep paralysis that day. I honestly don't remember. It was so long ago. But this all happened there throughout 3 to 6 month period, and then one day it just stopped. Now I talked to one of my best friends every now and then. We went to college and we grew up together. I say, "Hey man, remember this one time?" I was like, "Yeah, that was crazy." So we're all still talking about it. And lastly, my last event was I'm a prior service Marine. I was stationed in Henderson Hall, Virginia, in the early 2000s. Henderson Hall was the barracks. They were there. They're not there anymore. They demolished them to make way for more of Arlington Cemetery and other memorials. These barracks, I believe they were somewhat old. I was there one night, and I was feeling very, very sick, very sick. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was feeling very sick, and I just couldn't figure out what was going on. I go into work, I'm still feeling sick, and this is like the next day. This all happened kind of sort of a week. One night, I'm sitting in bed, and I just hear mumbling in kind of in between like the bathroom and the wall, and I go over to my next door neighbor. And I was like, "Hey man," it's like, I was like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "You stop yelling, whatever." It's like, "No, I'm here by myself." So he goes into my room. Like I don't remember if he actually hears it or not, but it's like, yeah, it's like I hear something, but I don't in fact know if he actually heard like the mumbling. So that one night, I just heard the word Smith, like somebody mumbling, like, "Hey Smith," and I was like, "Oh my God!" It's like I just heard somebody call it, like, "Hey Smith," but I'm still feeling sick. Like I'm saying, like sick to my stomach and like kind of dizzy, like almost like you're like food poisoning, but without the throw up and everything comes with it, just like the head feeling. And so it just so happened, and my parents had come up to visit that weekend, and it was like, hey, it's like I'm gonna take leave. It's like they just go away for the weekend. I'm not feeling good, so we go up to visit one of my dad's family members in New York. And I have to say, the more and more that the more away that I was from the barracks, like the further away, the better I started feeling. So as soon as we stopped in New York and to visit, I was feeling 100% better. And when I came back, that was it. Yeah, I always tell my wife like, yeah, I feel like somebody was attached to me that day or that week, just because of mumbling and somebody calling for somebody else in the barracks.
Now, did you know anyone
What?
with the name Smith?
Did not know.
Just go into the fact that Puerto Rico has been inhabited for so very long, and the history there. Is Puerto Rico a place where people are really open to the paranormal, and is it taboo to talk about it? Is it less taboo than maybe someplace where you just kind of get looked at funny?
To be honest with you, I haven't been there in 20 years. So back when I was growing up, it was open. You know, everybody thought it was open about it.
Mm-hmm.
But now I couldn't tell you. It was, my family when I was growing up. That was more of the culture, I guess.
Yeah, that apartment. It seems like, I mean, I could see maybe where, if one of your roommates was trying to pull a prank, you turn the shower on, you turn the lock. If it works like that, I don't know that door, but if you turn the lock and you just shut the door, well, then there's a cute little prank. But to turn the oven on or the stove on, burners on when people are sleeping is not a very good idea, and that wouldn't really be that funny of a prank.
I know, yeah, we were all pranksters. So yes, I have to agree with you. That's nice coming in conversation whenever I talk to my buddy. Like, hey, do you think somebody was playing a prank on doing this and that? And they're like, oh man, I don't remember. But like you said, we would never turn the oven on or stove and leave it on. But it's the whole first incident where the guy saw his shaving cream fly across the room. That's that's what started it all, I guess.
So they were actually arguing because they were trying to blame it on one another about who threw it, right?
Yeah, yep.
Well, Leo, thank you so much for coming on and being willing to share. And might I say, and I don't, everybody says this, and maybe you guys think it sounds really corny, but thank you for your service, by the way.
I don't know what to say, but you're welcome. I don't never know what to say in
I
return.
know everyone's like, it's so corny to say that, but we do feel like that about you guys. We think you're just wonderful people to put your hand up and go, yep, I'll do that. It takes a special person. So, but also to be willing to come on and share your experiences too. So thank you all the way around.
I appreciate you letting me share my story. As crazy as it sounds, but I just needed to I share it, as best I can say before I get old and forget, or before people in my family say, "Oh yeah, Leo's just crazy."
Well, they might I get called crazy within my own family, and that's okay, but it feels good to get it out anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, thanks, Leo.